afternoon, Year 10, and welcome to your next geography lesson. Today we are finishing off UK food. So in your book, hopefully from last lesson, you already have the title about UK food. We're actually not going to write a new title. We're just going to carry straight on. If for whatever reason you haven't got that title or your work is not in front of you, then UK food is a title, and get cracking with this do now. Write 3 sentences to summarize the main knowledge from last lesson from memory. We're going to go through some of that in just a minute. So if, again, like I said, for whatever reason you weren't able to do that lesson or you haven't done that lesson, well, maybe skip straight to the answers, jot some of those down, and that'll get you started at least on catching up on that missed work. So 5 minutes to get writing on that. Have a little think, and I'll give you some prompts in a minute. Pause the video now. Okay, just as a little prompt, there are 3 images to get your memory going. Hopefully you've had a chance to think from your memory, but now this might help. So pause again, see if you can add anything based on these 3 images. Okay, so here we go. Some of the main ideas from last lesson. 50% of UK food is imported. That was one of the big learning points, one of the key ideas. UK climate is not ideal for all types of food and vegetables, so importing is essential if we're to meet demand. So imports, and there's a reason why. Tastes have changed over time, and it can be cheaper to import than to buy homegrown. Demand for UK food has changed. Seasonal and organic produce can influence choices. And the impact of importing foods, we then looked at food miles and the subsequent carbon footprint, which contribute to the enhanced greenhouse effect. An example of a long-term impact of that, and specifically related to food, could be it reduces farmers' yields, so increasing food prices. So there we go. Hopefully that has got our brains working so that today we can build on that with some more information and some more knowledge about UK food. So specifically, what are we doing? Well, we're defining high-value foods. We're thinking about importing again, but those high-value foods from a low-income or a middle-income country. So we're actually looking at the impact now on other countries as well as the UK. And then we're explaining how the UK is responding to these challenges, just like we did last time again. So please copy this subtitle. What is the impact of importing high-value foods from LICs or low-income countries? And then that definition as well. Leave a line and write high-value foods are those that cost more than the equivalent type of locally grown produce available in a supermarket. They will most likely have been imported into the UK and or are out-of-season fruits and vegetables. So jot those 2 down. Pause now. Okay, so we're going to be talking about Kenya. So to begin with, let's recap where Kenya is in the world. You're going to write a few sentences, 2 or 3 points. Tell me what continent it's in. Use compass directions about where in that continent. Use this map to tell me about some neighbouring countries. Is it coastal? Is it not? Is it next to which ocean? If so, those are the kind of points you could write. So pause the video now and get writing those 2 or 3 sentences, starting with Kenya is located, and then over to you. Pause now. Okay, so Kenya is located in East Africa. It's part of the Greater Horn of Africa. The Horn being Eritrea, Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Somalia. Kenya just being slightly outside of those 4 countries is part of the Greater Horn of Africa. But if you're in East Africa, that's great. It's got a coastline with the Indian Ocean. Neighbouring countries include Somalia, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania, working around it from northeast down to southwest. Okay, so with that in mind, what about Kenya? Well, let's find out. Mange 2 is what about Kenya? These are an example of a high-value food which are imported into the UK from Kenya. Just in case you're unaware, they're on the screen there. They are little kind of peas inside a pod, all of which you can eat, and they are a high-value food compared to other products of similar weight and similar size and similar quantity of food. They are more expensive, not crazy expensive, but they are certainly slightly more expensive, so they class as a high-value food. Okay, a pie chart on the screen. Hopefully you're familiar with how they work. This is the price breakdown for 1 ton of Kenyan Mange 2. First thing I'd like you to do is look at it, look at the key, and just write down a single sentence, a single summary of what you think it shows. What are the key points you can take from that pie chart? Should just take a couple of minutes. Pause now and have a little look. Okay, so I would argue, if this was me writing this, and if you haven't written these points, this is certainly something to jot down now. Thing that jumps out to me is that the producer who is the farmer in Kenya, is only earning approximately 12% or so of the total money. Very, very little of that is going to the people who actually put probably the hardest work in growing the crops themselves. What's the name of the type of economy where people work with no contracts? Interesting one. Something to think about. Bit of retrieval practice here. Have a little think about that for 10, 20 seconds, and I'll tell you the answer once you've thought. Pause now. So the answer, the informal economy. They work in the informal economy. We came across that previously in Rio de Janeiro. Here we're talking about this, and 2/3 of workers in Kenya work in the informal economy, meaning they have no safeguarding, they have no contracts, they don't get sick pay, they don't get holidays, they get none of the benefits of formal work, of the formal economy. So a big challenge for the people working there. There is also something else, a bit of another opportunity for retrieval practice. There's something else which could help solve the problem. Can you remember what it is? Again, spend 20 seconds, 10 seconds, having a little think about it. Can you remember what that strategy is called? It's from the development gap, which you'd have learned about in year 9. Pause now, have a quick think. So the answer is fair trade. Fair trade being where farmers are paid a suitable price, a fair price for what they're growing. They're not exploited in any way. They're not used negatively. They are given a fair chance to develop and improve their lives. Okay, let's continue this theme of Mange 2 and Kenya, and in fact, looking at some slightly other products as well. If you could follow this YouTube link, it's just over 5 minutes to watch, and copy and complete this table. So opportunities and challenges for both Kenyans and for the UK. 2 sides. Take some simple bullet point notes as you go through, and I'll show you some answers in just a second, and you can pick up any that you may have missed. So watch the video, copy and complete the table. I do the table as you watch it, and you can pause it as you like. Pause this video now and get cracking with that task. Okay, so you should have got some notes from the video. I'd now like you to read the importing high value foods section on this textbook page. There should be a PDF attached to class charts as well, but hopefully you might just about be able to read that there. Add anything that you may have missed to that table. Pause now and do that. Okay, so here are some answers for you. I'll let you read through these opportunities and challenges. If there's any you're missing, please do add them on. If there's anything you're not sure on, as always, do let us know. Okay, so how is the UK responding to these challenges? I'd like you to copy that subtitle and the 2 bullet points here. This sums up the 2 strategies that we're talking about: local sources of food and agribusiness. We'll work out, I think the top one you can probably work out what it is already, but the bottom one, we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail as well. So copy everything on the screen and pause the video now. Okay, so let's start with local sources of food. Your task is to explain how using local sources of food, that is, food bought within the local area, very close to you, may solve the challenge of food miles. Some hints. Try to include some of these points in your answer. The idea of food miles, obviously. We want to talk about that. Carbon footprint is a key term you need to include, and the enhanced greenhouse effect. So if you need to, you can go back to your notes from last lesson to recap what that was all about, what the links between those 3 key terms are, and then I'd like you to, as a task says, explain how that would solve the challenge. Should be fairly simple. Turn that into a paragraph. You've got 5 minutes to write that. Pause now and get cracking. Okay, so let's move on to the slightly more meaty agribusiness. Copy that definition. Agribusiness is an intensive farming method aimed at maximizing the amount of food produced, otherwise known as the yield. In the photo there, you can see a strawberry farm, and you can see that we're in some kind of greenhouse. We've got these trays, these raised trays, packed full of plants, and there will be technology in this greenhouse. You can see all sorts of sensors and tubes and piping coming out of the strawberry trays there, the temperature in this greenhouse will be absolutely to the degree the perfect temperature to grow strawberries. The amount of water that strawberries need will have been scientifically worked out and dripped into these so that no more or less than the exact amount they need is included. Same goes for fertilizers and nutrients. This greenhouse will be the perfect place to grow strawberries, to get the most out of it. This is what we mean by intensive. Lots and lots of energy and resources are used to get the most amount of food out of this land. If you were just to grow strawberries on the ground here without any of this technology, you would get far, far fewer strawberries. The yield would be a lot lower. So that's the idea of agribusiness. It's an agricultural or a farming business. It's run like a business to make the most amount of profit, to produce the most amount of products possible. Copy that down and we'll move on to have a look at some more about this. Okay, so now I'd like you to read through page 259. It also does touch on organic produce as well, which we've come across before. So we're not going to go back over that again, but we're going to talk about the agribusiness, as I said. So read the definitions again on there, read some of the other information. There's an example of Linford House Farm, just to get some idea of an example of one. Just read through that, and that'll prepare you for the next task. Pause down, get reading. Okay, so let's talk about agribusinesses in a bit more depth than just the definition. There are 4 points on here. The underlined section at the start of each paragraph is choose the correct answer. So if you think they have high levels of investment, you write that. If you think they have low, you write that. Please don't write both. Any of the gaps need to be filled with the words at the bottom. They're not broken down into the right paragraph, so you've got to work out what goes where and put it all together. So pause now, copy and complete this, and the answers will be coming on the next slide. Okay, so hopefully you've spent a bit of time on that, thinking about it. Remember, you're going to learn a lot more likely to remember things when you've spent time thinking about it. So if you have quickly skipped to this slide because you just think, oh, I'll copy the answers out, please don't. You're wasting your time. You are not going to learn things anywhere near as effectively. Yes, you might do it quickly, but you're really not learning anything. So go back, be honest with yourself, and get cracking with actually thinking about it. Even if you get stuff wrong, great, fine. You learn through mistakes. Read the answers, work out why they were wrong, what's the correct answer, and that'll do you a lot of favors. Anyway, here we go. So agribusiness has high levels of investment. Lots of money is pumped into these because it can be spent on the necessary equipment and technology needed to get the highest yields possible out of the land. All of that technology in that strawberry greenhouse, that costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to put that all in, but you get the more out of it as a result. You're spending to make even more money. They use modern methods of technology because this helps to reduce the number of people needed to work on the land and therefore reduces their overall costs so they can make greater profit. Again, another way to make profit. They use lots of chemicals because this enhances the amount of food that can be grown in the area available, so producing the highest yields possible, maximizing output, the amount of products they create, and profit again. You can see a theme here. They employ very few workers because it's more efficient to use machinery instead. Technology can do the work for them and therefore they're able to farm more intensively. So it's all about making money, making crops, and everything else is not considered as much as a result. And that's really it. That's agribusiness, a way that we can try to become more self-sufficient as a country. If we convert all of our existing farms to agribusiness, we're going to make loads of food. And we might have to rely less on imports. Using greenhouses, we can stop importing seasonal food. We can grow it here all year round by controlling that environment. However, it comes with disadvantages as well. The environment certainly suffers as a result in some ways, using pesticides and other chemicals and things like that. Anyway, I'd like you to complete this exam question. As a final task, it should take you 4 to 5 minutes. Explain the UK's attempts to respond to changing demands for food. So pick one. It's only 4 marks, so pick one strategy, one attempt to respond to changing demands for food. You've got to think to yourself, what is that changing demand I'm going to be thinking about? Is it seasonal food, for example? Let's say it is. Let's say you go with seasonal food. So how are we attempting as a country to respond to that demand for food all year round? Well, could it be imports? Could it be agribusiness? There's lots of options there. There's going to be something that you talk about. So you make your point, you give your evidence or your example to support that point in a bit more detail, and then the really important bit, you explain. You explain how that works, why does it meet that changing demand. That's a great answer to email to your teacher. Fantastic kind of bit of independent work to be thinking about. So get cracking with that. It should take about 5 minutes, and that is the end of this lesson. So thank you very much. Good job, and take care. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.